Welcome to the Rachele and Cassandra show. Before we begin, our disclaimer. I know it sounds like Rachele and Cassandra are giving legal and financial advice, but I promise you, they're not.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 94 of the Rachele and Cassandra show. In our unending desire to bring you the best, most timely information for your real estate needs, particularly when it comes to real estate in Southeast Michigan. I have to put that disclaimer on there. No, in all of Michigan, really. I'm in Southeast Michigan, but we cover the whole state.
I'm in Southwest Michigan, but cover the whole state.
Yes. Okay. So today we're going to talk about forbearances, and it's a timely topic.
For mortgages, not for student loans. We can 100%. Talk about that too, but in mortgages specifically.
Yeah, specifically in mortgages. And most of our topics come out of real stuff that we're dealing with, like feet on the ground, frontline stuff. And I got a phone call from a friend the other day. Actually, I got a message, and it was like hey.
It was a friend of her friend, and she called me. So it was a 4-layer deep. But what was it?
No, you go. Because I never would have got there. What I was actually going for is
we're starting out with her
like
that.
I
didn't mean it like that.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, the point I was trying to make is the person who reached out to me, they were kind of trying to be on the down low, and maybe a little embarrassed for their friend. It was a person I know who knows somebody else who reached out, I don't know. They have this situation with a forbearance on their property, and it's a COVID forbearance. And there has been all of this talk for, I don't know, since they started these COVID forbearances, 2 years now, that there was going to be this mad influx of new inventory, foreclosures galore, and pennies on the dollar for your houses. Like, you heard these rumors, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to kind of shed some light on what those forbearances really look like, why they're scaring people. I think it's unintentional, and what you can really do about it if you're coming out of a forbearance, a COVID forbearance. And yes, I fucking totally called Cassandra because she's the money person. I can help you sell your house. I can help you decide if it makes sense to sell your house. But in order to do that, we need all options on the table. And when you are coming out of a COVID forbearance, you have options.
Yeah, you have a lot of options. And basically, I suspect people are getting afraid because the COVID forbearances for mortgages are ending. You can't just keep ignoring it. You have to make a choice. So if you log in or you get mail, you have to take the next step. And I think a lot of people get paralyzed when they have a decision to make and they're afraid of making the wrong one. But I assure you, making any of them is better than ignoring it. Right?
Well, and let's back up and talk about what is a forbearance, because my understanding is all mortgages at one point, or the lion's share, were just being slapped with this delayed payment, this forbearance situation. Yeah. Okay. So, and that's what I wanted. Like, what was that gesture? Because I know it's not true, because I didn't stop paying my mortgage.
That's
not true. It seems like I could have.
All student loans were slapped with a forbearance.
Yes.
You did not have to make any payment. Your payment was zero. You could still make a payment if you wanted. You did not have to. Mortgages, most people log in online, I suspect. Some people still get paper statements. There is a giant, if you are suffering from a COVID-19 hardship,
banner across everything.
Click this button and let us help you. They don't want your house. They don't want to lose the house. So they wanted to give you the opportunity and let you know very clearly and plainly, because it was required that they do so, that you wouldn't have to make payments. I had a client who took COVID forbearance, was still working, didn't need the forbearance at all. He stopped making his mortgage payment for 6 months, put the money in a bank, and then was like, I'm ready to buy. And I'm like, what? You haven't made a mortgage payment in 6 months, right? We got it figured out. But, there were people who were shady who didn't pay their mortgage either. Whether you needed it or didn't, it was available to you. All you had to do was say, give it to me.
Mm-hmm. And some people, Yeah, some people I think may have opted to not make the mortgage payment because it was kind of like a gift for cash flow. Maybe they didn't know if they were going to have an income in 3 months. I mean, lots of reasons.
You can also get out of debt. A lot of people took the COVID forbearance and paid down their credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It
I
literally
mean, that's
freed
kind
up
of a
cash
smart
flow.
fiscal decision. Yeah. But
So
now we're
here
at the
we
time.
Yes.
Forbearance has ended, so you have to pick. There are generally 4 choices, regardless of your mortgage type.
I feel like we should use some hypothetical, like real numbers, like not real numbers, but let's imagine you were in a forbearance and you haven't been making any mortgage payments for X number of months. So now you're behind by $50,000. And I use the word behind in air quotes. So now you have this, had you been making your normal mortgage payments all along, it would have totaled $50,000. And what has happened now today, you're coming out of forbearance and there's this bucket of $50,000 worth of payments owed. Just for ease of conversation, I like to have that.
Okay, so option 1, you reinstate your loan. Reinstatement is, all right, turn me back on and I will slice you a check for $50,000 today.
Like, hey, the bank says you owe us $50,000 for all of the non-payments. So cut a check right now for $50,000 and then we'll roll forward as though nothing happened. So no penalty for non-payment, no foreclosure. But do I have that $50,000 sitting around to write that check?
That's the rub.
Yeah.
Right.
No. So if I don't, because I bought a boat instead with my forbearance money.
That's reinstatement. It doesn't seem that many people are doing that. The next one is a repayment plan where you turn it back on and you say, I want it to go with my normal payment and I'd like to pay the $50,000 back in an installment plan that we work out. Like relatively quickly, right? It could be 12 or 24 months, that kind of thing. So you can kind of negotiate your reinstatement.
So I have a question about that. So if I do that, then I'm making my regular mortgage payment back on, plus a separate payment to carve out, eat away at, bring down the balance on this $50,000 hypothetical extra debt or remaining debt.
Yep, that's the repayment plan.
Okay. So that's also terrifying because I have cash flow problems, which is why I took the forbearance option.
Okay.
So now what?
Now what? So you actually have the opportunity for a COVID-19 deferral. And the deferral is essentially, you resume your normal monthly payments and that you were deferring the $50,000 typically to the end. So it triggers when you sell the house or try to refinance. It sits there in a kind of a silent bucket.
Like a silent second or home equity? No.
For an FHA, yes, it goes into a silent second. So then you end up having 2 liens. So a little tricky, but you still have your first mortgage. You still owe them $50,000, but they're going to set that over here. You're going to keep making payments, and that $50,000 sits over here as a second lien against your property.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Does that $50,000 accrue interest debt on it, or is it like
typically
inside
it does not.
So it's in a special bucket?
Yes, and I've seen this. The paperwork's really standard for FHA and they're not. The goal is for you to keep your house, not for them to make another $50,000 on interest, I guess.
Yep.
So from the silent seconds I've seen, it just sits there quietly. And this is how I describe the Mishta loan. Go to seller refinance. It wakes up and goes, pay me, bitch. Right?
Yeah.
Like you owe me money too. Like,
yes.
So don't forget you have it. A lot of people forget they have a second mortgage when it's a silent second because it requires nothing. It's like a tax lien when you go to sell the house. It's like,
it just
pay
sits
me.
there. Yep. It just sits. So so if I am let's say I choose to do that, which seems like the most cash flow friendly option because I'm deferring, that's actually like if the value of my,
There's another one too, but go ahead. There's 2 more.
Yeah. Of course. I'm just thinking if let's say I stay in my house, I pay off the remaining 25 years or whatever that I owe on my current mortgage. And then, I decide to retire to Bora Bora. I sell my house. That $50,000 is like theoretically going to be nothing compared to the value of my property. That seems like a very appealing option. Does it impact my ability to borrow against my house?
Yeah, it's a lien against your house.
I'm just making sure. Like, so if I have it becomes part of the LTV, loan to value ratio. If let's say I owe $100,000, my house is worth $500,000, that 50 gets added to the 100, so my debt becomes 150 in full.
Yeah, it's just on a separate invoice, if you will.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. Okay. And what happens if I pay off my first mortgage, but never make a payment on that 50 grand? I don't have to, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just deferred until you sell or refinance. So refinance, that's the fourth way. You can refinance and pay off the first and the second and get out of. Now, it's for most people, it doesn't make sense to refinance right now unless you'd like to tap into your insanely growing home equity. Really good time to do that. Mm-hmm. But so you can refinance it and pay off your first, the balance that you owe, that $50,000, and get a whole new mortgage and basically start fresh, kind of.
Yeah, and that would effectively roll that 50 grand into whatever term you choose or qualify for your.
Yeah. So if it reamortizes it, yes.
Yes. So if I had that hypothetical 25 years left on my mortgage, I could refinance into another 25-year mortgage. I don't have to go back into a 30.
Right.
And that 50 grand I owe gets spread out over the 25 years. Okay.
Yes.
What else?
And so the last one, which is a little tricky, but also I would assume a lot of people would probably pick. It's the flex mod. So it's basically a loan modification. So you say, I'd like to start paying. You enter into a trial period, make X number of amounts of on-time payments, and they will take that remaining balance and do a loan modification. So it goes back to your principal, right? So your balance on the mortgage is still high, and they essentially recast the mortgage for up to 40 years.
Really?
So it actually, yeah.
So it's like a refinance without all the refinance hoops.
Correct. Yep. It's much cheaper, easier. It does extend the term. We've had the whole discussion on why we don't have mortgage burning parties anymore. Mm-hmm. The lowest monthly payment is everyone's goal. And to do that, you got to do a 30-year, right, mortgage.
They're adding 10 years, a 40-year mortgage?
No shit. Yep. Wow. FHA is too. I mean, it's borderline predatory because it's whatever. In my personal opinion,
I know
it will save a lot of people.
Opinions, not facts.
Opinion, not fact. I mean, they do the workup on how many options can we offer people. So regardless of which one you pick, you have to pick one, and whichever one seems right.
So what happens if I don't pick? Because I think the phone call that I fielded was somebody who was immobilized and terrified, maybe having some PTSD from losing their house in, 07, 08, 09, sure, and going, oh shit, I don't know what to do. And people maybe fully don't understand all of these options. So if I do nothing, what happens?
So
can they foreclose on that?
So my assumption on what happens is they automatically go to reinstatement, right? It's the lender that gets them their money the absolute fastest. Boom, you owe me $50,000. However, if you don't ever call the servicer and you just totally ignore it, then yeah, I think that eventually they have a right to foreclose if you do nothing because you are totally delinquent and you haven't addressed the issue, you've just been ignoring it.
And I feel like technically, and I don't know this for sure, but if I track the concepts, forbearance, 2 years, I racked up this additional $50,000 debt just for language purposes. I know that's not what happened, but I've got this side debt.
You've been ignoring it.
Yep. Well, and then there was no penalty, but all of a sudden, if I don't call my loan servicer, they say, here's this $50,000 you owe us. If I ignore that conversation, that then starts to become a past due debt of $50,000 against my house by the first lien holder. And that debt came out of that first lien, so they could initiate foreclosure proceedings.
Yeah.
And that's when you, if you can't get in time to, or you now don't qualify for a mortgage because you've got this terrible credit report from not making payment, guess what your only option is? Call me.
Yes, exactly. Then you're into the selling, because if you did not have a mortgage late, if you took COVID forbearance for 2 years, you did not have a single late payment on your mortgage at all, right? It just shows as agreed.
Count against
as agreed. It'll say forbearance as agreed, and it'll show me the payments are zero, but there's no hit to your credit rating.
Right.
So call before. If you are not calling, you're trying to avoid nothing. Like, please don't be afraid to call. They have worked out so many solutions for everybody under the sun for you to keep your house. And your rate's really good. You know what I mean? You're probably in a really good mortgage. So get that fixed. Don't ignore it. And I suspect your people were kind of like, oh my God, I'm paralyzed. I don't know what to do. They're telling me I owe them $50,000. Just call. There's so many options. We'll put the link in the show notes on just like what the options are to everybody.
Yeah.
Regardless
and they're
of
required.
if your servicer offers it legally, the Fed has said you must offer the people this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's way less scary and not at all similar to what happened last time. Now let's imagine you are a real one-off weirdo situation where not only do you not have the $50,000, you don't have a job anymore, or you can't make the payment. You really did buy a boat and now you just can't make your mortgage payment. Well, guess what? The demand for your house, properly marketed, although we are seeing some softening of the market and some shifting in the aggressive, insane market we just have been experiencing for the last 6 months, and the numbers in our market support the things I just said, the value of your house is incredibly high. So you are likely to walk away with a shit ton, that's the technical term, of money compared to what you owe on your house.
Yeah. And you and I've had this side conversation before. If you literally don't have a job and you have equity in your house, right, and you can't make your mortgage payment and you're not working and shit just went horrible, oh my God, sell your house before they foreclose on it.
Yes.
Take your profit, pay a year in advance at a rental so that you can give yourself a chance to get back on your feet or something, right?
Yep,
We've
figure
talked
it
about
out.
this.
And I would go so far as to say, a lot of times people you get to the point where there's the sheriff's sale and you have been foreclosed. So just a friendly reminder in the state of Michigan that you have 6 months to redeem that foreclosure. So though you may have already been foreclosed, you still have bags of time to sell that property, pay off the debt, even with the penalties, and walk away with a fair, healthy amount of money in your pocket. And, money can bring a lot of freedom and relief from that stress. And we can help you navigate to that point. It's literally what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't want anybody to lose their house. Don't want anybody to be homeless. So just get out and ahead of it. I guess that was my message for this conversation. Don't ignore it. There's banners, there's flyers, there is shit telling you have got to deal with this. And there are so many really good options. I'm sure one of them is right for you.
100%. Ha! There it is. That was for you. 100%.
100%.
Yay. All right. Well, that's good. So we're also trying to make these episodes. I'm just going to address that. We're trying to make them a little more digestible.
Compact.
Yep. And staying on topic and going deep instead of going long and down all the rabbit trails. So let us know what you think of that format. And we'll see you in episode 95. Thank you, Cassandra.
All right. Thank you, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye.
The info given is current as of this recording, but remember, the market changes and real estate is hyper local.